Yeah, sincerely, I suggest one of the things that I stated and that I found out is, I suggest at the stop of the day, she's my mom and I love her because she's my mother. I mean, even though we don't virtually communicate, you already know what I imply. She is my mom, I do love her, and I suppose I were given a higher information of what she became going through or what she may be going through, you realize what I imply. Now that once I see myself and how I certainly have become, you realize what I suggest. I assume there may be a touch compassion element that goes with that. Debbie Mathers, who Satisfactory called Eminem's mom, lived a life full of challenges and controversy. But in the back of the public drama and the tough lyrics that made headlines, she confronted distinct struggles that best few surely understood, and her very last 24 hours had been not a non-violent end, but a devastating and sorrowful chapter filled with unanswered questions. What sincerely happened to Debbie in her closing moments, and how did her life take such a heartbreaking flip? Join us as we find how tragic the very last hours of Debbie Mathers' life were. Debbie Mathers' fight through childhood struggles. Debbie Nelson's life turned into in no way an easy one, even to her very last moments. For most human beings, she turned into called the female whose complicated relationship along with her famous son played out in songs and public feuds. The mother and her son, Marshall Mathers, navigated a roller coaster dating for many years. Their conflicts, at the side of the songs that showed their struggles, made her a debatable determinant. But at the back of all this, she became a woman who continued gigantic hardships, including her final battle with lung-most cancers. On a quiet Monday night in St. Joseph, Missouri, Debbie surpassed away on the age of 69. Eminem's mother, Debbie Nelson, has died. ET affirmed she died after a war with lung cancer. Debbie becomes 69 years old. And her death marked the cease of a lifestyle packed with ache, resilience, and an unshakable will to live on. Deborah Ray Nelson became born on January 6, 1955, on a U.S. Air Force Base in Salina, Kansas. Her dad and mom, Betty and Bobby Nelson, were young when they began their own family, and their marriage failed to last lengthy. But little did she recognize that the worst become but to return. After they divorced in 1964, Debbie's existence took a hard turn. Her father changed into inside the Air Force, and her mom labored as a bartender to guide their big family, but balance turned into difficult to discover. And when Betty remarried, Debbie was left to deal with her abusive stepfather, which most effective delivered to the chaos in her home. Growing up in a dysfunctional circle of relatives and the turmoil at home left her determined to get away. So she left at a young age, hoping to build an existence free from the chaos that had surrounded her. And at simply 15 years old, Debbie made a life-converting choice. She married Marshall Bruce Mathers, Jr. On September 20th, 1970, on the way to break out from her tough existence at domestic, it became a young and fragile union, but at that point she believed that beginning a family could convey her the stableness and peace she had continually wanted. The couple fashioned a band referred to as Daddy Warbucks, acting in Ramada Inns along the Dakotas-Montana border, which turned into their try to build a future collectively. However, their dreams were quick-lived. 2 years later, on October 17, 1972, Debbie gave birth to her first son, Marshall Bruce Mathers, who the arena now is aware of as Eminem. Whether you know him as Eminem, Slim Shady, or Marshall Mathers, there is no denying the astronomical effect he's had at the song Enterprise. The start itself was demanding, as Debbie endured a grueling labor for 73 hours, which nearly took her lifestyles. And even though she survived, more challenges saved coming. When Marshall Jr. deserted the own family a year and a half later, Debbie became left to raise her son by myself. This betrayal marked the beginning of a long and painful journey as an unmarried mother living in poverty. Debbie and her young son moved regularly, not often staying in a single region for greater than a year or. They had to shuffle between family members' houses in towns like St. Joseph, Savannah, Kansas City, Warren, and Roseville earlier than subsequently settling in Detroit. And without a regular income and little aid, Debbie struggled to provide a solid environment for her son. However, lifestyles in Detroit additionally introduced its very own set of challenges. They lived in a predominantly black, operating-class community, and being one of the simplest white households on their block made them goals for bullying and violence. Eminem, who turned into only a small child, became often beaten with the aid of nearby youths, and these reviews scarred him deeply. Debbie tried to shield him as great she ought to, even to the volume of submitting a lawsuit in opposition to the Roseville School Board in 1982, after he suffered a concussion from being attacked with the aid of his friends. Unfortunately, the case was disregarded because of governmental immunity. This left Debbie feeling helpless and defeated. However, despite her struggles, Debbie endured to fight for her family. In 1986, she had some other son, Nathan Kane Samara, with her boyfriend Fred Samara she had at that time. Raising kids as an unmarried mom was even harder, however Debbie continued. The Grammy winner famously found proposal over the years of their chaotic formative years, inclusive of references to Nathan's stint in foster care. She remarried in 1987, this time to a landscape gardener named BJ, hoping another time to locate balance. However, the marriage best lasted a year, and she or he changed into left to pick up the portions once more. Years later, in 1998, Debbie married John Briggs, and together they ran a small taxi employer in St. Joseph, Missouri. Although the enterprise helped them financially for a while, their marriage only lasted 12 months. And once they broke up, Debbie returned to using her original closing name, specifically after her son Eminem became famous. Stay tuned as we delve extra into this tragic tale. Debbie and her son's complex courting. Eminem's rise to reputation in 1999 together with his hit single My Name Is marked the start of his extremely good adventure as the satisfactory selling rapper of all time. But it also introduced interest to his stricken courting along with his mother, Debbie. In his tune, he brazenly expressed his harm emotions and frustrations about his early life, which sparked a protracted period of public feuds and disagreements among them. And this brought about Debbie filing a lawsuit towards her son for 10 million greenbacks. The lawsuit was approximately a line in Eminem's songs in which he rapped, "I just discovered out my mom does extra dope than I do." For Debbie, "I just discovered out my mother does extra than I do. He wishes to end demeaning me. He wishes to cease, making attacks on me. I mean, you don't do that for your mom." This line became now not only a lyric. It became a totally non-public assault that she damaged her recognition. The lawsuit put their already strained courting in the spotlight, beginning a public feud that lasted for years. Debbie's lawsuit for defamation showed the anxiety between her and her son, and she or he argued that the lyric was no longer genuine and had harmed her recognition badly. However, Eminem saw the lawsuit as simply every other a part of the conflict that had continually been part of their dating. Launched a statement explaining Eminem's side of factors, and according to him, Eminem's music is about his existence. Everything he says can be established real. Rosenberg also pointed out that Debbie had been threatening to sue ever in view that Eminem's music, My Name Is, made him famous, emphasizing that the lawsuit became rooted in years of unresolved problems among them. However, the court docket case did not go in Debbie's shoes. In 2001, the judge determined that she would simplest get $25,000 of the $10 million she had asked for. Nelson filed a $10 million lawsuit towards him for defamation. However, they settled for $25,000. But maximum of that money went to her attorney, so Debbie turned into left with only $1. $600. This was a great deal less than she was hoping for. And it reminded her how tough it turned into for her to assignment her son. Even though the lawsuit was in trying to defend her reputation, the final results most effective made human beings consider Debbie as a tough individual in Eminem's life. And no matter dropping the lawsuit, Eminem did not forestall expressing his feelings approximately his mother in his song. Just a year in advance in 2000, he released a track called Kill You, which had even more provocative lyrics approximately Debbie. In the music, he rapped, "Simply bend over and take it like a okay, May." This line turned into a continuation of the anger and resentment that had driven a lot of his early tune. When Eminem launched Kill You, it solidified his reputation as an artist who wasn't afraid to get real about his non-public existence, regardless of how controversial it were given. His music became raw, emotional, and awesome honest about his existence. And his complicated relationship together with his mom, Debbie, became a subject he saved coming return to. But for Debbie, this supposed that her son's repute came with a non-public price tag. She found herself beneath scrutiny from the general public, together with her call continuously linked to the cruel lyrics in Eminem's songs. Nelson and Eminem's rocky dating become chronicled in numerous of his hit songs, which include Cleaning Out My Closet and My Name Is, the latter of which induced her to document a pronounced $10 million defamation match against the rapper in 1999. Even although she saved protecting herself in interviews, the harm to her popularity changed into already finished. The public feud among Eminem and Debbie becomes simply the top of the iceberg, and it meditated deeper problems that were simmering for years. Eminem's childhood changed into a big subject in his tune, and he regularly talked about feeling neglected and unsupported, blaming Debbie for some of the tough times he faced growing up. While Debbie, on the other hand, noticed herself as a single mother who did the satisfactory she could beneath hard situations. However, according to Eminem in interviews, his song changed into a mirrored image of what became really taking place in his lifestyles. For him, the lyrics weren't just creative expressions. They had been a way for him to deal with the ache and frustration he'd been sporting around for years. But for Debbie, those songs have been actually hurtful due to the fact they made her out to be the awful guy in her son's existence. The lawsuit and all the drama that accompanied were just one a part of a protracted records of misunderstandings and hurt feelings among them. The complete felony mess additionally confirmed how tough it can be to balance your personal relationships with your public existence, and for Eminem, his tune changed into all about his actual lifestyle studies. But for Diddy, having all their conflicts played out in public turned into simply humiliating and heartbreaking. After the lawsuit, both Eminem and Diddy were left in hard spots. And losing the lawsuit for Diddy was like dropping once more, as it showed that she couldn't trade the way people noticed her, the way Eminem's lyrics had painted her. Even although she attempted to protect herself, most human beings sided with Eminem, whose track told an effective story of his struggles. Over time, Eminem endured to deal with his relationship with Diddy in his songs, often revisiting the pain and anger he felt. The maximum hurtful of one came in 2002 with his tune, Cleaning Out My Closet, in which he expressed his severe anger, calling her a totally hurtful call. Eminem and Debbie's dynamic discovered its way onto the massive screen, with Kim Basinger gambling a model of Debbie in 8 Mile, and displaying a stage of bitterness that seemed impossible to forgive.